Hello everyone. Today I'm going to do something that's a little weird, a little strange, a little different. I'm going to try to talk off the cuff with only the most minimal script on the planet. Yes, that's right. I'm going to try to free-lib it, free-hand it. It's going to be terrible, but I'm going to do it because the last time I sat on a topic, I sat on it so long that people... Well, let's just say people are going to be getting that that group of thoughts, months later, and it's a whole other difficulty and challenge, I guess. Like when you're just super awkward and you can't think straight as soon as you're standing in front of a microphone. You can't stop overthinking things. So anyway, yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about housing. So housing is really near and dear to my heart because as a young girl, I was always interested in creativity and in producing things. I was into many different kinds of hobbies. And of course, one of those hobbies very obviously turned toward housing decoration. Now, IRL, I have some idea about what I like on my walls and stuff, but let's be real. When you're an adult, you don't have Rosebud that you can just type into Sims 2 or Sims 4 and get tons of cash. That's not the way it works. But if I did have Rosebud, holy moly. So anyhow, TLDR, I think the use of Rosebud in Sims really opened up my world, and I really got into home decorating just like any other female on the planet. I shouldn't say just like any other female on the planet because obviously there are some women who are exceptions and don't give a flying flapjack about home decorating, whether it's real or digital. And like I said, I'm ambivalent. I go in and out of these phases. So let's just say that way back in the day when I was embarking on my journey into being a PC nerd, I definitely got into The Sims, and I actually got into light modding. Can you believe it? Light modding. I was modifying Winamp, if I recall correctly. I was modding Sims, and I was making up really cool wallpapers for myself, and it was all just very cute and adorable. Flash forward to today, I'm much more capable as a gamer now. Now, that's not saying a lot, okay? So, hold your horses there. But I'm more capable than I was back then. However, within me, the spirit of home decoration has not died. And one of the huge, let's say, lacks that Eve Echoes had was home decoration. Now, Love Nikki, the mobile game I was playing more extensively, had some kind of 2D little home that you could decorate with various floors. Not enough for me. Not enough for me. I needed more. I wanted to walk around in a space just like I did in Sims and fall in love with my creation. So of course, when I got sucked into playing various MMOs, I also kept an eye out for their housing systems. Guild Wars 2, at the time that I tried it, had no housing, for example. The Star Wars housing was, well, in SWTOR... I wasn't too impressed by it, let me say that. But it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. I was in Coruscant. I was living my best life in Coruscant. It was great. But was it as, I don't know, diverse and interesting as I hope? Not really. But once again, I was on free trial. I could barely scrape the surface of that game. Maybe there was more that I was missing. I heard ESO allowed every player to get a house, and recently Epic, one of the members in my community, shared with me a link to a video talking about all of the amazing things that you can do in ESO with your housing, and it looks phenomenal. There is, however, an ongoing issue between me and a lot of housing systems, and we'll talk about that really strange issue. But I hope that from hearing my kind of background, you understand that when I say that I fell in love with FF14's housing system, you kind of see why. FF14 has a fantastic housing system that is connected in some ways to the crafting and gathering side, because you have to craft and gather many pieces, and you can buy some things on the market board, and you can grind for some things in dungeons, But generally speaking, housing is kind of the drain where all the crafters and gatherers put their output. And it's fantastic. I really like it. Now, WoW, just like last year, I think, revealed that they were working on housing. And today, Preach released a video about WoW housing. He got his hands on it, he experienced it, and he is pumped. And I am so pumped for all of my WoW friends, for any WoW viewers out there who are still playing WoW and we're waiting for WoW housing. I am so happy for you because WoW housing looks pretty boss. Let's all be frank here. It looks pretty good from the sounds of it. Now, are there issues? Yes, obviously there are issues, and Preach brings them up. But there appears to be a lot of quality of life features that I think Final Fantasy XIV can learn from. So let's kind of just quickly review what Preach is talking about. I'm not going to be using any clips from his video. I want you to go and listen to his video for yourself. But let's take a little look here at some of the stuff, okay? So he kind of breaks it down into numbers, and I added a couple numbers just to clarify some of the things he said, because although Preach is one of the more coherent YouTubers out there was just this one little section where I think could have gotten their own little numbers. But anyway, I'm not going to go nitpicky on Preach. He's amazing. Okay, so good stuff. He said the good stuff is that number one, it's larger on the inside, so it's kind of like the TARDIS. Number two, you have complete control where you're going to put items. They can hover in midair and all of that good shit. Number three, game design with housing in mind. So they're, from now on, when they design stuff for the game, they're going to think about, can this go into the housing kind of area, and will it have dyeing capabilities and all of that? Multiple dyes, multiple dye slots, fantastic. Tons of items can be placed in the single property. I believe he floated a 10,000 item slot cap. Now that item slot cap, it's a little bit different than how you might imagine it, so I'll touch on that a bit later. Number 5, easy to use. Number 6, performance is pretty good in there. Not so much in terms, like, not a lot of lagging. Limitation. So this is basically limitations he noted, basically things that he wanted. For example, he wanted more lighting options, movable spotlights, that kind of thing. He wants more sound and musical options to change from one portion of the house to another portion of the house. Shared access to blueprints so that people who are less invested in housing can just download a blueprint from a more housing-minded player and just have a beautiful house, basically, right away. Longevity, he's concerned about dead neighborhoods. He's concerned about the fact that progression system might kill interest early on. He's concerned that if the housing is too utile, if it has too many good things about it, I guess, they could end up like garrisons, so that everyone ends up in their garrison and nobody's out in the world. I suppose. I did not play WoW. I did not play WoW during garrisons. I have no idea. But apparently there's this balance that he's concerned about between having a completely dead neighborhood and a completely dead MMO world. Fair concern. Very fair, I think. And then he's also thinking about how will the game be accepted into the broader confines of the game, given that there are some people, I guess, in WoW who have very limited view on what constitutes real gaming, I suppose. I don't know. But anyway, so he considers housing to be a Pandora's box because it could open up things like DJ events, but it could also open up strip stuff and casinos and gambling and all of that. So it's a Pandora's box, I guess. Now, the potential that he mentioned toward the end is that it's possible that they could link to other games within the Blizzard, I guess, sphere, so that they could potentially get items that are Diablo-esque or are StarCraft-esque. And that kind of perked up my ears, because I think this leads to some of my issues with stuff from ESO and Guild Wars 2 so far, insofar as what I've seen. Now, I'm going to put a pin on Guild Wars 2 specifically, okay? And I'm going to now, I guess, embark on some disclaimers, okay? I have not played ESO extensively, only a little bit, and I have not gotten to the point where I can get a house. But what I've seen of the housing appears to be very set within that world. And so what you get is basically what I will call a medieval aesthetic. It's not bad. It's not ugly. It's quite beautiful. It's quite extensive. But it is a single world. And it makes sense within that narrative. And I think the constraints of that narrative just means that there's a bit of a constraint on what can be achieved in terms of assets. You're not going to be able to have a spaceship or a space-looking, lamp in ESO, presumably, because you are you're in a more medieval-esque world. On the other hand, I've played Guild Wars 2 a bit more, and I happen to know that there are sections of Guild Wars 2 that are distinctly, shall we say, sci-fi. So you have spaceships and you have metals and you have metal surfaces. So I feel like Guild Wars 2's world allows for more multiplicity of potential assets. And when I looked on YouTube at some Guild Wars houses, lo and behold, I came away with the distinct feeling that you can definitely get some pretty strange and interesting looks. And some of it is distinctly metallic or almost like science fantasy, like science fiction, like, and I'm honestly like, ooh, okay, this is promising. So once again, it does kind of make me want to get back into Guild Wars 2 temporarily, but like, where do I have the time for it? Can I like play it while I'm sleeping? I don't know. So anyhow, it's just really, really great because when I go into a housing system, I kind of want to have a lot of variety. Call me picky, okay? But I don't want to feel like I am trapped in the medieval times. Now, I know some people are like, my immersion. But like, setting those people aside and their very legitimate desires, I just don't care. Sorry, I don't care. You can have your immersion in your real world. I want more choice. Thank you. I want more aesthetics. I just don't want to be trapped in a medieval-esque kind of like world, I guess. I have great love for medieval-esque worlds, but I like to pick and choose for my housing. I don't know. Call me weird. So one of the things that I guess I have huge questions about when it comes to the WoW housing is what kind of aesthetics will be achieved. I don't doubt, however, that the players will come up with something. I've only played WoW for a short period of time, not even as much as Guild Wars 2 in my opinion, and so I'm not certain how extensive and how aesthetically varied this housing system will be able to get. But you can comment down in the section below and assure me that it will achieve the variety that we get in, let's say, Final Fantasy. That's right. In Final Fantasy, we have a lot of aesthetics, and that's because we go places in Final Fantasy. We're not stuck on a planet. We have various things that we can go to, various places, various redacted that we can enjoy. And so it allows for a lot of players to achieve everything from a very medieval looking home to a more stately Edwardian Victorian home to a more, let's say, Fallout Shelter dystopian home to a much more clean, literally modern home. And some of the showcases for Final Fantasy XIV are mind-blowing what they can achieve given the limitation of the housing. So I guess so far, like right off the bat, if I'm going to talk about my interests in MMO housing, I would say 14 has my most interest. If I'm going to sit down and fiddle with a housing system, it's going to be in Final Fantasy XIV. But Guild Wars 2 definitely has got me side-eyeing just because it's so fantastical and so different. And so I'm going to, of course, put some links down below so you all can see some of these videos. But essentially, I'm very impressed by what some people have come up with in both Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2. Now, that's not to say that ESO does not have its own charms. Once again, like, I'm not trying to shit here on ESO. You know, it's better than RuneScape. But all I'm just going to say is I really, really struggle sometimes to get excited about housing systems when they don't have a lot of personalized variety. And you could say, well, you can make this bed any color you want. Yeah, but it's the shape of an old wooden bed. What if I don't want the shape of an old wooden bed? What if I want a more modern flat bed? What about that? So anyhow, I'm not saying FF14 has all the assets in the world either, but I just like how you can kind of extend yourself out. However, all of that being said, even though I'm, having the appearance here of glazing Final Fantasy XIV, I think Final Fantasy XIV can learn a lot from what WoW is doing with the initial rollout of this housing system. Okay, I still have a few questions, but let's be clear. There are some things that WoW is going to be doing with its housing system that FF14 needs to sit up and take notice of. And there are hints and clues that Yoshi P is already thinking about some ways that they can improve on housing. But let's take a look at what I think FF14 could do in order to improve and be more like the WoW housing rollout. So WoW housing is larger on the inside, and that's really crucial because if there's anything that players want, it's more space. Now, I'm sure that there's a limitation on how far you can push it, but maybe they've instanced it to a degree that you can push it quite far. So perhaps 14 should take a look at how is WoW instancing their houses and how are they getting it larger on the inside and whether they can make it more expandable. And do you know what? Make it grindy as fuck. Like make it so that to add a new section to your house, you have to like grind out tens of thousands of gil. Like, I don't care. Make it so that the grinding community are like crying. But but please make houses larger on the inside. Just say it's magic. Just say it's magic. Some crystals help this happen. And now all houses are larger on the inside. And you could even have it so that it is expandable up to a point. And the player can keep expanding as they see fit. But like, not so that it's like totally crazy. Now, one wonders, let's say a player decides to expand their house to a 3-floor high cathedral-like room, like Preach mentioned. Is that going to be visible from the outside? I would assume not, given that neighborhoods are going to exist in WoW. So my question would be, how is that going to affect how the house looks on the outside? Maybe Final Fantasy XIV can just ignore that and say, okay, all houses look the same on the outside, but on the inside, they're extremely different. And people just have to like accept that. And I think that would be an acceptable solution, honestly. Larger on the inside, however, though, means that we need more item slots. Please, Yoshi, more item slots. Okay, so right now, I think maximum is like 600 or something. I'm not sure. But for WoW, they're going to have 10,000 item slots. And if anyone goes over to WoW and starts complaining about how few item slots they have, they need to be... Anyway, let's keep going. So apparently, according to Preach, some items will take up 5 slots or less, or more maybe. But like, depending on the size and the weight of that item, it might take up more slots or less slots, whereas like a small book will just take up 1 slot. So that's kind of a cool idea to have like different slots and then just have different items kind of weighing more in terms of maybe performance or something like that. I don't know. But this 10,000 item slot cap, or proposed one anyway, seems really generous. I'm not gonna lie. Like, what more do you need, really? And so maybe Final Fantasy should look sideways at that and be like, we need to figure out how to make it work for us as well. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who come out and say, blah, 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 spaghetti code, blah, 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 blah. But, like, surely they can come up with an idea to maybe revamp everything. They need to revamp, given that WoW is coming out with a directly competing housing system, okay? They have easy and advanced modes so that people can get as nitpicky as they want about how they move their items around, or as simple as they want if they just want to snap things on. Honestly, sounds amazing. Maybe Final Fantasy XIV should update its UI and make things a bit more easy to move around. Another thing that I have noticed recently is that there have been some UI changes that have been made throughout Endwalker. And I have to say, I've been impressed with all of these UI changes, and I think more UI changes could be made. So whoever made the UI for, I don't know, Island Sanctuary or Cosmic Exploration should maybe even just go into the housing UI system and just give it a spruce up, make it look really nice, make it look really clear, make the buttons easier to click on and press. I don't know, just have it so that it's a bit more intuitive so that we can get stuff moving around and all of that. And a few other things that were mentioned offhand as well is that maybe you're going to be able to have your pets out in the house, in your WoW house, and you might be able to see your war chamber, war band, something, war troop, I don't know. Like I said, I barely play WoW. So, so I believe, like, basically your favorite alts can show up in your house. And this, by the way, happens as well in Guild Wars 2. This is because in both Guild Wars 2 and in World of Warcraft, alts are very important. You see, in those games, you have to have a separate character for every class that you want to play. It sounds crazy. I know. Especially some jobs are locked to a specific race for narrative reasons, which is kind of cool ish, sort of, if that's your thing. It doesn't work for me. I have too much of a life. I can barely handle a Final Fantasy XIV single character, much less two. And it's just, it's too much. So I get how some people love alts. I am not an alt fan. I don't try to remember my friends' alts at all. Unless they have the same name, I'm not going to recognize them. It's just the way I work. But I'm going to be frank. Even though I just said that I have no time for alts, I have alts in Final Fantasy XIV. Yes, yeah. Usually these alts get created for content, or they're getting created because a friend wants to go through the game, and I am more than happy to walk a friend through the MSQ all over again. It's just something I love to do. I like to work with new players and help them have the best experience that they can. So for me, even though I'm not majorly into alts, having your alts walk around would be cool. But I understand that that might be impossible because some people have alts on different data centers. So another option would be to allow your retainers to walk around and basically act like NPCs in your house. That would be fantastic. They don't have to say much or anything, but just like walk around and kind of like look busy. Now, the downside for that is, like, what if they decide to sit on a chair that you want to sit on? So maybe there would have to be a toggle to turn your alts off if friends come over to hang out at your house. But generally speaking, The idea of having alts or having your retainers walk around, or in FF14 houses, there are certain vendors. Having certain vendors move in a certain type of path and a certain type of pathing system that you can manipulate would be fantastic. I think having some movement and variety in your house makes it more interesting, but it wouldn't be 100% great for people who have extremely busy houses, who have like cafes going and all of that. I think in that case, it would probably be better to have like a toggle where you could toggle on and off what the retainers and alts and NPCs and vendors are doing in the house. So yeah, so I think having more movement in the house is a fantastic idea. We should look sideways at WoW and we should yoink that. We should yoink it from Guild Wars 2. We should yoink it from WoW. Even if you are not an alt player, having your retainers out is great. Especially because your retainers, most people really do put some thought into what their retainers look like. So there's some personal investment in the retainers as well that could exist. And it could probably broaden that investment if you had them out in your house moving around more freely. Another thing that I mentioned was pets being out in the house. So once again, the equivalent, I guess, for pets in 14 would be a minion. And minions are very cute, and having a limited amount of minions moving around your house would be phenomenal. You could even break the house down to, basement, first floor, second floor type of thing. And then you just determine, which floors you want which minion on. Very similar to Island Sanctuary, where you could pull your minions out, and I love that. So once again, I think having your minions in there, or your retainers or alts in there would be really cool, and we need to take that from WoW and Guild Wars 2 and make it our own in Final Fantasy 14. The downsides for WoW continue to remain with the aesthetics. Once again, I'm a little cautious about what the aesthetics will be able to achieve. How much variety is there? I know that there are spaceships in WoW. I know that there are sci-fi elements in WoW. You got gnomes doing steampunk in WoW. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are there is more variety in the housing system for WoW in terms of assets. But will I be able to access them if I'm not part of that tribe or race? Good question. Good question. So many questions there. And I'm, like Preach, I'm not a fan of the idea of a progression system. In Final Fantasy 14, if you get a house somehow, miraculously, or if you move to Kraken and get a house almost right away, then the only thing really holding you back is either not being able to craft it or not being able to buy it with gil. There are 3 ways to get assets in 14. You either buy it with gil off of the marketplace, you craft it yourself, or you buy someone's crafted, right? Like I said, with gil from the marketplace. Or in some rare cases, you will have to grind for it in a dungeon. So some dungeons or some certain instances will have housing items that you can basically grind out for doing certain activities. And that's basically all you have to do in order to get all of the items that you want in Final Fantasy 14. However, there are items that are locked behind levels. So in some ways, if you wanted to craft everything in your house, you will be limited by your crafting abilities and by access to materials in later expansions that you can't access. However, I will say this. If you are not averse to spending gil, you grind for gil and you can buy most stuff off of the marketplace. And so what is really cool about that is you don't need to go to those zones and buy that thing. So in many ways, you could actually buy furniture from later expansions, as far as I know. Even if you never finish that expansion, you could still buy it off of the marketplace. If it's tradable, you can get it, basically. So I like that fact that FF14 basically enables you to get into decorating your house right away, as fast as you want. But in WoW, it seems like there's going to be a progression system where you have to progress in your house. And this might drive some people crazy. But on the other hand, it might, in some ways, keep people coming back. So I don't know. Maybe it is a blessing in disguise. Who knows? So yeah, I'm very interested to see what WoW will do. I'm very excited for the people in WoW. I actually discovered a WoW character that I think is attractive. I still think the glams in WoW are... Anyway, so WoW might one day become like a side game of all the side games, up there with Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2. I actually like my character in Guild Wars 2, but the glam in Guild Wars 2 doesn't get me excited either, to be honest. But anyway, and it's not just because of the lack of Catboys, okay? It's not just because of that. I actually think that the character I made in WoW is physically attractive to me. It's just the clothing looks so flat and painted on. It's so unexciting. But I'll get there. I am a great believer in finding the good. Okay, in finding the good. There's a way to find the good. Recently, my sister went to her favorite Thai place for her birthday. And I went along because it's her birthday and I want to celebrate her awesomeness. But it's a place that I've been struggling to find a dish that I enjoy. Let's just say that. I'm not a fan of the noodles. I wasn't a fan of the other noodles. I was quite stymied, so I thought, you know what? I'll just try the fried rice with the chicken. Guys, it was peak. Oh, it was so good. So now I have a dish that I can look forward to legitimately and know that I will enjoy it. It is fantastic. And you know what? That happened because I kept giving it a bit of a chance. So I feel like maybe the housing system in WoW, combined with the fact I finally found a character that's not completely heinous looking, maybe I will find a hook. But it's very hard for me to find a hook in some things. It's about taste. It's about enjoyment. It's very subjective. It does not mean that the WoW housing system will be bad. It just means it might not be to my taste. In the same way that ESO's WoW housing system probably has amazing qualities compared to the FF14 housing system. But I just can't enjoy it the same way that I enjoy my own house. So, yeah, I'm still not done my house in Final Fantasy XIV, so I really can't look at any other housing systems right now. But maybe one day I will. Until then, I'm going to be extremely excited I'm going to be celebrating with my WoW friends because there is a housing system that they might genuinely enjoy, and I'm really pumped for them. I really, really hope it will be everything that they dreamed of. I hope that will kind of bring even more options to the RP community over there, and that everyone's going to have a lot of fun in it. And that it will also not kill the overworld or whatever happened during Garrisons. Okay, so that's about it today. Me talking off the cuff. Tell me how well or how terribly I did. I hope I kept on topic and didn't ramble at all. So anyway, stress. I'll see you all next time.